Beep boop boop beep beep boo boo. Jarvis, cue up the intro music. MB2 Underground is online. I'm Sarah Reed, and I'm here with my co-host, who is practically the Pepper Potts to my Tony Stark.
JT. I don't know that we got it clear the first time. Could you do the intro sound that you...
That was all improv. I didn't have that in my notes.
Okay. Well,
I just feel like I don't know.
That was very creative.
Thank you. I beeped.
I have a feeling this will be a great podcast. Man, that I really like that.
Thank you.
I really like that. Other than the part that I'm Pepper Potts, but
I thought you'd like that. That was my favorite part, personally.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, today our guest is from Henry Schein One. She's an executive director and was a big part of Jarvis,
beep, boop, boop, beep.
Which we'll talk about. So please welcome Melissa Marquez. Hey, Melissa.
Guys.
Hi, thank you for coming.
You know, Jarvis should just make that noise every time.
Does he not?
It's like
you mean like the actual
program?
That would be pretty cool. It's kind of like the
I
old...
could do the voiceover for it.
Yeah,
you have a couple of different takes here you can just take from.
It'd be perfect. Just like you log in and like you used to log into the internet. And you
AOL dial-up.
Yep. But if it was the sound,
yeah,
you
exactly.
take that to Marulus and let us know.
I'm gonna right away. He should be watching this, so he'll hear.
Watching on YouTube.
Yes, for any of our listeners, we did do an interview with Steve Marulus, who was episode 17, who is also a big part of Jarvis, if you want to go check that out.
So, Melissa, sorry, as I was taking a drink, dental sometimes is something that people get into because they're really passionate about dentistry.
Sometimes people just stumble into it.
Yes. How did you get to dental?
Sort of both. I actually have this from my senior year yearbook. There's like a little insert that goes in the back of what do you want to do, when you grow up or when you graduate. And I wanted to be a dental hygienist. That was like my original goal.
Why?
Well, my mom was a nurse and my dad was a physical therapist. My sister was a social worker at the hospital. Okay. So they just did a ton of like medical, and I didn't really want to be a nurse or anything like that, but I thought I wanted to do something medical, and teeth have always just been like kind of fascinating.
Yeah, fair.
So that was my original goal, but I had no idea if I could even tolerate working in somebody's mouth.
Yeah, see, I don't think I could. I just think
know.
mouths are gross, to be honest. But
I just can't handle the smell. I think that'd be the hard part.
They don't all smell.
I guess that's fair. So did you end up going the hygienist route?
I was taking like prerequisites for that.
Okay.
But because I didn't know if I would actually like being a hygienist, I thought I would be an assistant first. And so I basically, at that time we used phone books. Telling my age here. I got out the phone book and I wrote a letter to just the main dentist in my town. I grew up in a small town, Abilene in Texas, and I sent it out to every dental practice and just asked them if they would hire me as a dental assistant. Could I come in for an interview? And that's how I got my first dental job.
What was that first interview like? Was it a working interview?
Well, let me preface, like back then you did not, and I don't even know like today if you actually have to be certified. You have to have your like license for radiography to take dental x-rays. You can be NITRIS certified, but really you could learn on the job as a dental assistant.
I think there's
and
only
that's what I was
specific
shooting
states.
for. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did, and the first experience was not great.
How so?
I went in and we did a lot of working interviews back then, and I think practices still sometimes do that. But a working interview is basically where you kind of get thrown in for the day.
But if you've never dental assisted before, are you just standing there going, well, what's that?
Kind of,
okay.
Yeah. Doctors training you on the job was not like abnormal at all. So I didn't even really like question it. I don't even remember being like nervous or like, I don't know if I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently he did not think I could. Like we ended the day and he's like, yeah, you don't know anything. You're too much of this is a liability. Like,
thank you.
Yeah.
And you thought, fine, I'll show you.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's part of my general nature anyways. Like I'm really motivated by a challenge like that. So I went to the next one, on to the next one. And they were actually like very patient. Like they really made it more of a program where you start out, you know, sterilization technician, getting to know the names of instruments. And they had sort of this in-house training program. And that really, so it was a blessing that happened because clearly the first place I went was not set up to like help me develop in that way. So the second place that I went was a much larger practice. It was like 12 chairs, 2 doctors, and for Abilene, that was probably the biggest practice we had at the time. And they just pretty much taught me everything. And it turned out to be really great that I landed there.
What did you got into dental assisting to see if you wanted to be a hygienist. So what was the conclusion you drew? Like, was that where you wanted to go or what?
I still thought I would want to be a hygienist, and that was the plan, but then life happens.
Okay.
I met my husband and got pregnant. And so I moved to Dallas, where he's originally from, and that's what brought me here.
Okay.
And, you know, having a baby really teaches you, you have to provide for somebody else. I was still taking like some classes, but I needed to work full time at that point. So I'll never forget going to careerbuilder.com and like trying to find something once I had moved to Dallas. And that's where I found Dental One.
Okay.
Now, before we talk about the transition from chair side into like the corporate side of dentistry, what do you feel like you still utilize in your day-to-day work experience that you learned from being a dental assistant?
I learned a lot about dentists.
Yeah, specifically.
And how to support them and how they communicate and why they do what they do, which I think is really important if you're in any capacity supporting them as a partner in any way, whether it's administrative or chair side, or with what I do now, which is more solutioning around software. So I think I use skills that I learned almost every day from that. Because they really, you know, to be a good chairside assistant, you don't have to know as much as the dentist, but you have to know what they need and anticipate their needs because they can't be waiting for you to hand them the right instrument. You need to know the procedure start to finish so that you're already a step ahead. And I feel like in the other things I've done, whether it's operationally running a practice or being a regional at a DSO, it was always about anticipating, like, staying ahead of what they might need next month, next year, how they want to grow their practice. So it's definitely helped me.
So much respect for dental assistants. I got to play dress up as a dental assistant on the mission trip, and I was easily the worst dental assistant these dentists have had because I had no idea what I was doing, like to the point where they were like handing me off to each other.
You were a liability.
I was definitely a liability.
Sarah was she was the first interview. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, it's like, you know what? Go help Dr. Lurg over there. I think he needs some
Except I was like, fair, you're right. I should not be here.
Do you think from a communication perspective or understanding how dentists communicate or what their needs are specifically in an operatory, do you think that like translates across practices, or do you think it's very unique doc by doc? I don't know how many docs you had the opportunity to work with. I'm just kind of curious on that.
I definitely think every doctor is unique. There are some core principles that I think, like the commonalities that are almost very consistent, maybe except with a few exceptions, are all very wanting to help other people. I mean, it's very hard to meet a dentist who will tell you that's not a big part of why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Whether that's their team or their patients. So I think that's core to them. And I'll also think just, you know, a lot of pride in what they do is pretty consistent. But just like anybody, their personalities and maybe like, you know, how much they are willing to ask for help and support can be different. And what their level of success they want to achieve is very different too. Some are just very happy maintaining a practice and seeing those patients return. And some have really big lofty goals of the kind of practice they want to have. So just tailoring to that is important, I think.
So then you go on to careerbuilder.com and you get introduced to Dental One. What was your first role within that organization?
It was team leader.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Office manager.
Okay.
Dental One was great about growing and developing people. And so the names of the titles there were very much about like coaching and supporting. And I've never been a fan of the word manager. So I'm glad that is not, you know, what they called us at the time. It really was about partnering with the doctor and helping lead the team.
And were you intentionally looking to get out of being clinical? and more administrative?
In private practice, I had done some administrative, so
Okay.
I didn't go in cold like I did with dental assisting. Like I had done some front office things and I had learned a lot from doctors. But the other thing that was really great about Dental One at the time was the training program. So they actually had a training facility in one of their practices. And it was actually in the practice that Susan Huff was in because she's one of the first people that I met at Dental One.
Back in 2009?
No, that would have been like 2004.
2004. Dang it. I'm not doing great with dates.
No, it's pregnancy brain.
Yeah, that's it. It's the kid.
So I read the notes. You're in an office. Susan's in an office. You guys are both in fairly successful offices.
Yeah.
And there was some competition there.
Yes.
Whose office was better? You can tell us. It's okay.
Yeah, it's just us girls here.
Yeah. Nobody's going to listen to this.
Honestly, I don't know, like if we were to compare the entire time we were there. But I mean, West Grove is still the OG number one.
The girl.
Susan.
Okay. I love that. So you go from dental assistant to team leader.
Yes.
And then did your role at Dental One grow from one office to multiple, or like how did your professional progress as now a provider for kiddos, and
Yes.
how did that progress?
I think what really drew me, like what fascinated me about the role at Dental One from the very beginning is that when I went in for my interview, I was interviewed by a regional manager. I think we called them coaches at that time. They were the coaches, same thing as a director or regional manager. And I was fascinated by like, oh, this person now works with 10 practices. And it gave me this idea that I could have a career path. And so that's what was really exciting to me in the beginning. So after about 2 years, I moved into what we called a trainer role at the time. And that role was specifically helping people that were new to Dental One, whether through classroom learning or, taking them to a really strong practice and learning from that practice, doing like the sexual harassment training, like doing all their onboarding initially. We would also do what we called qual checks, which is like where you just drop in by surprise to an office and you
Undercover boss.
basically run through this like list of things that we knew that practices should do to have a good outcome and, HIPAA and stuff like that.
I love it. You're your own secret shoppers.
Yeah, we
I
were.
did that once. I didn't get the money for it because I don't think I did it right. But going back to JT's original question, well, I guess just talking about the connection with you and Susan Huff,
Yes.
what do you think helped you stand out in that position as team leader that made your practice so successful?
Number one, I had a phenomenal doctor. Dr. Johnston, was just such a great doctor clinically, but also he wanted to produce. So he took great care of his patients, and he was really a leader in the practice with me. That's what made our results stand out. So I think it was number one, our results. Number two, I did have great relationships with the people in the practice and the team, and obviously had a lot of advocates and a lot of great mentors. And so I think number one, it was the performance due to those factors I mentioned, but also just having really strong relationships with my own leader too helps.
So 15 years at Dental One.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, did I cut you off?
No, you're good.
Give us like the elevator pitch of your career span of 15 years.
Yeah. So starting with one practice, moving into training others how to perform.
Okay.
That lasted another 2 years. After that, I moved into more of that coaching role that I described to you, where I had like not really a region, but a smaller market that I led. And that was maybe 7 locations in Dallas, Fort Worth. And then moved into a regional manager role, which was just a larger territory like Texas, Colorado, and Arizona. And then from there into a VP of operations role and eventually chief operating officer for my last 3 years.
Damn, go off. That's impressive.
Yeah,
From dental assistant
awesome.
to COO. I love a come up story.
Yeah, it was. From being a liability to probably still sometimes
Vetting the
a
liabilities.
Yeah, to vetting liabilities. I like that. How does Jarvis fit into all of this, or does it fit in up until 2020?
I met Stephen, who we talked about at the top of this podcast, in 2019. And part of the reason that I met him and how that came to be is tied into Dental One, strangely enough. So Keith Miller was my chief operating officer at Dental One when I first started. He was there from day one. And Eventually, when he left the organization, his support and my good start is what allowed me to continue growing and developing there. He, along with MB2, was one of the very first users of Jarvis. So when Stephen mentioned to Keith, hey, I want to grow Jarvis, I want to keep having other DSOs or groups or practices use this information, he was like, I need somebody that knows dental and I need somebody that knows operations. And Keith connected us.
Ta-da.
Yeah. About that time, Dental One was going through another transaction. I think we went through maybe 4 or 5 different private equity transactions or strategic moves. This one was going to be more strategic. And I really felt like it was the perfect time after 15 years to think about doing something new. So that's what I did. It was a good timing. It was right at the end of the year going into a new year. And I was like, 2020, it's going to be a great year to do something new.
To be young and naive.
It was a great year.
It was a year.
I think. Or 8 years, right? It was one.
Great time to leave my very steady job that I've been at 15 years.
What was that transition like? I mean, to your point, you were at the same place for 15 years, growing in your career, and now you're the new kid on the block in a similar industry, but now you're focusing more on software. What was that transition like, and what were some of the challenges you faced initially, besides COVID?
Oh, gosh.
That's a very fair one.
I think learning a new language of software as a service and technology and if you know Steven, he's very intelligent and dynamic and talks really fast. And so I was trying to take all this in. I learned so much from him, but I would say it was just really the challenge of learning a new business. I was still able to use what I had learned through dentistry and leadership and operations and apply that. But there was this other side that was kind of intimidating of, I don't know this word this developer is using. What does that even mean? What is SaaS? Googling things and, you can learn anything now, though. I feel like there's so much information out there. And I think knowing that that's kind of how I'd built my career, I haven't done this before, but I can learn it. It kind of led me to know it would be okay. But there were definitely a lot of scary days. And just being in a startup in general, especially through a pandemic, is a lot different. You go from having the support of these different functions like marketing and HR, and to all of a sudden you're all those things. So overnight, I was like, I think they told me, Stephen and David, our other CEO at the time, was basically like, you need to do a demo within 2 weeks. And so I was selling within 1 or 2 weeks and figuring out, I don't even know how to do a demo, but I'll figure it out. And, it was a lot of fun.
That's cool. That it reminds me a little bit when I got to MB2 in 2019. I was still learning about the organization and the story and how it all worked. And it was just, hey, we need somebody to take this phone call. And I took a phone call, and I remember, and we've actually partnered with this doctor. He still reminds me of this. He's like, yeah. He's like, you didn't know all the answers, but you told me you didn't know the answers, and you told me you'd follow up and get me the answers, and you did. He's like, so it was fine.
The key to success.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, even the Googling to figure stuff out, I built some reporting in Power BI that I literally, Susan said, I need you to turn this into a data cube. Google. What is a data cube? I'm not kidding. And Power BI popped up and we already pay for it. So I literally built this reporting with one screen with the report, one screen with the Google questions. And then recently I had somebody ask me to help them build out a deck in there. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not going to do it with you because I have a lot of Googling to do. I don't know how to do any of this stuff. But it makes it fun, getting in there and figuring it out for yourself.
Yeah. And now you can chat GPT. Build this thing for me. And of course, it's not perfect, but it definitely helps you along the way.
Absolutely.
In the notes, you mentioned that there's a book that you really like that's called Everything is Figureoutable.
Yeah, you got it right.
Who's making up words now?
Not me.
Apparently, Marie Forleo.
Marie Forleo.
That's right.
Nice job.
So obviously, I'm going to assume that it's a book about, hey, you can think through things critically, you can figure things out, you've got the tools that you need to be able to do it if you've got the drive and desire. But
fair assumption.
That seems like that was probably your kickstart at Jarvis, was okay, here's the opportunity, I've got to go do it. Have you continued to see that kind of approach and attitude as you've now been at Jarvis for what, 6 years now almost?
Yeah. When we were acquired by Henry Schein One, so that our goal was to sell within like 5 years, and then I think due to COVID, it really ramped up people needing access to their data remotely, and so it really kickstarted things. And since joining Henry Schein One through that acquisition, that theme of figuring things out definitely has come into play. I had never worked for a large public company before, and you just go through all these different transitions of meeting new people and sort of proving yourself over again. One of our former CEOs, Chris King, always would constantly say, like, you just have to find the white space, like find where the area is that you can bring help and support and change to. I think that's been part of it too, is that don't be afraid to take on new things because you can figure it out. There are a lot of tools out there. There are resources and people. And I don't mean to like be dangerous and risky with it. Like, I'm not going to go cut a crown tomorrow. I'm not a dentist. Like, there are certain things it's not figureoutable and you actually need your education, but that's what you can figure out. What do I need to learn in order to do this if it's a dream I have? In the book, she tells a story about, she kind of got this from her mom. Her mom had this little like transistor, it was in the shape of an orange. It was like a transistor radio from Tropicana that she got, and it had broken. And they didn't have a lot of money. So it kind of starts with her narrative around how her mom just instilled this in her. Like, it's okay. Everything's figureoutable. And they just kind of had that approach. And I think that's so true still today.
Yeah, that's cool. I can hope that my kids, I mean, you mentioned you've got kids. Sarah's obviously got one on the way. I've got kids. The constant conversation that I have with them is, hey, you've got the tools that you need. Like you've got a brain, like, let's think about this, like take a step back and look at all the opportunity and how can we solve this problem. Last night with one of my kids, it was, I've got to create paper. Well, had this idea of he needed an angel for something for class. And he was like, I was just going to cut it out of paper, but my teacher was like, that's probably not a good idea. Like, I don't think you're going to get a good grade. And he was like, okay. And he's like, so I sat there and I thought, and I was like, what about a paper plate? Like, Dad, can't you make like paper plate angels? And I was like, that's great. Like, if you can take something and figure it out, and like, I would love for my kids, like Marie did with her mom, for my kids to be older and be like, yeah, my dad helped me think about things differently.
And they will. I think that's like the growth mindset thing too, that you can get better and do different things and be a different version of yourself.
Yeah.
I like it. How has Jarvis grown and evolved over the last, like JT mentioned, almost 6 years that you've been with them, from like a technology or opportunity perspective? I know we talked a little bit about the Henry Schein One acquisition, but also like how has that expanded how Henry Schein One in general supports MB2 and vice versa?
So I really, prior to joining Henry Schein One, I didn't even know all the things that they did. I'm like, what is Henry Schein One? Most people are familiar with Henry Schein from a distribution and supply perspective, but a lot of people don't realize all the solutions that are part of Henry Schein One. So Jarvis was a natural fit because there really wasn't something they were offering to customers at the time that integrates with a lot of different practice management systems and allows you to like manage and run your business and grow it in a different way and just have insight to KPIs and data. It's been kind of this area dentistry hasn't been great at for a long time anyways. But now it can complement these other solutions. Like a couple of the things that we've been doing with MB2 that are really cool is Eligibility Pro. So 44 locations are working with Eligibility Pro now, which makes the biggest pain point in dental practices better, insurance verification. Everybody hates it.
And nobody seems to have found a solution for it.
I mean, and we even say this, like, our solution is not perfect because nobody has perfectly figured this out yet, because you have these limitations with payers and an EDI response versus what they put on the web. I mean, there's a lot of like facets to it, but it is the best solution out there today because it writes back into the coverage tables, and it also eliminates the amount of time somebody has to like translate and like manually enter all this stuff into your practice management system. And then AI, I would say, is the other big piece, like Detect AI that's built in and native to solutions. So that has just changed exams. Like nothing had changed a dental exam outside of the Explorer in like hundreds of years, other than maybe digital sensors and old school things like the Diagnodent. But to have AI now in dentistry is just really, really cool. So we're seeing practices, even especially at MB2, start to adopt that. So I think it's just everybody understanding that it's one workflow. Everything shouldn't be separate. Like how you communicate with your patients, how you schedule them, how you measure your effectiveness as a dentist, like that needs to all be like one platform workflow. So adding Jarvis into that has been, really helpful because it helps it bring it full circle for the practice.
Yeah, I think that's a critically important component of like where we're going to see things going. There are so many tools out there now, software-wise, that you get these tech stacks at practices that are, software and application on top of application. And sometimes they have a hard time talking to each other. Other times they don't talk to each other. And now you're working down separate streams and processes to make sure, okay, did we get a review from this patient? Did we get them rescheduled? And so having a solution like that where you guys are fully integrating kind of that singular process with the patient, that's incredibly valuable.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for you guys where there is choice for your doctor partners and what they're working with. Like it's good for us because it just pushes companies like Henry Schein One. Like if we want people to adopt something like Dentrix or Ascend with these very like native, one platform, so they're not having to think about things and work and have 20 different logins and work in all these systems and do things manually, then we just need to make the best thing out there. Like it's on us to make that. So, yeah, it's been really cool to be a part of that. We're definitely not where we need to be with it, but we have the right leadership that is just continuously like pushing on our engineers and our product leaders of like, you have to make it easy. Like you have to make it where it's not a struggle for the practice anymore. So I like being a part of that.
That's awesome. As far as Jarvis specifically, is there anything on the horizon that is like the next iteration or the next phase of Jarvis that you're excited about?
I think one of the things that launched in the last couple of years is the way that we work with the scheduling. So Reserve with Google, like that's one of the biggest new things that Jarvis has brought to the table recently, where it's like, if you're booking, the way everybody books a reservation now is you can search it on your phone and without having to go to the restaurant website, there's that little reserve.
Open table.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it works. Like without them having to even go to the practice website, they can just book
right through Google. That's cool.
Yeah, right through Google. And it works at a level that dentists appreciate because everybody's afraid of giving control of their schedule over.
Oh, yeah.
We've all been burned by stuff like that, but it's so flexible in terms of like the way you can configure it. So if you just want to open up like your ugly times or you just want to open up a certain type of appointment for a doctor who maybe needs more, you can do that.
That's cool. I didn't know about that.
What is an ugly time?
Like 10 and 2. Like, the times everybody wants are like before work and after work.
I got you. Okay. I was like, I don't know. It's an ugly
like
time. Like, do I go to the dentist during the ugly time?
Open. It's just hard to get people to come in like
right before
lunch
lunch or right after lunch.
Yeah. I see that.
Going back a little bit, I know JT mentioned the book that was pretty impactful for you, but you went from kind of being a part of a team to leading teams throughout your career. And a lot of that started with somebody taking a chance on you. So how have you utilized that as you lead teams, whether it's giving people an opportunity or teaching them to figure out a bullet? Like what strategies do you use in leadership?
You just made it a verb too.
Damn straight.
I think seeing people, it's always easier, in my opinion, for somebody to see your potential maybe more than you do. And especially for women leaders, I think there was this study that was done where, let's say there's a job posting for this new role. They did this study where like men would apply for it with having only like 40% of the skills listed. But women are like, I have to have 90% of, if not 100, every single thing they put here is a job requirement.
Yes.
And sometimes women especially have that mindset, but you have to encourage them that like, hey, you have 50% of what's needed here. These things you can learn. These things make up maybe for the gap you have with that particular skill set. So I think it's just the things that have resonated for me is not letting your imposter syndrome creep in of like the story you have about yourself and what you might not be able to do, and trying to pay that forward with other people that may have some self-doubt, but that are really, really talented.
Yeah.
To encourage them to like put themselves out there and try new things.
Yeah, women need to be more like men, just a little bit more delusional.
Yeah,
Totally.
Hey, look, you can't get the job if you don't try. Right? What's the worst that can happen?
Delusional confidence.
Are there qualities?
Women.
Are there qualities in folks you just mentioned, like being able to find talented folks, even whether they're quote unquote qualified or not. I think you're using the talent as the qualifier there actually, so they would be qualified. Like, what are some of the attributes or characteristics of those folks that you've seen in your career?
Well, number one, just being like a great person to work with. Like, don't be a jerk. Like, I think when you're interviewing people, you can kind of get the sense of like, is this somebody that I could work with? So number one, are they good to work with, but will they also challenge and like push back and challenge my own thinking? And do they fill gaps that I have if they're going to be on the team? So I think that's a big one. I also think just like being the kind of person that is willing to take a little bit of risk, and that I think especially if you're hiring somebody who's going to be a leader that has had some type of experience with that in the past where they really learned what type of leader they want to be. And so a lot of the questions I'll ask in those situations or scenarios when I'm thinking about like what I'm looking for in somebody is, do they care about people? Do they really want to like have a servant leader mindset to help other people and to help them grow? I think that's really key, because everybody's had the boss that like doesn't really care about you at one point or another. Yeah. And that's just not going to bring out the best performance in a team. So I think just making sure their leadership philosophy makes sense, that they believe it, and that their actions are going to line up with like what they're saying. So trust is really big.
Yeah, and it's hard to build that at the beginning when you're talking to somebody for the first time who may be nervous about an interview. But that's what I like about the like, does this person seem to care? Like, is this something that, you know, people will want to come into work and see this person every day?
Yeah, exactly.
One of the other things that you mentioned in the notes was about your inspiration coming from your mom. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, my mom was a nurse for 45 years. So that was her life. So I always remember her getting up in the morning early in her scrubs, and she worked in different departments. Like, I was going to ask what kind of nurse she was. Yeah. So she worked mainly in day surgery at the hospital on the floor. She was a nurse supervisor. She worked in an infusion clinic. She's done home health. She stayed at the the hospital for that length of time too. So it was the same employer for all 45 years. That's
amazing.
Yeah. And so she was just a very loyal and kind and caring person. And maybe it was a perfect segue for you to ask me that question, because that's what I just shared with you that I look for in other people too. I think you can be a great person without necessarily coming across as warm and kind, by the way. It takes all kinds. But how she's been an inspiration to me and how I want to lead is definitely just the care she had for other people. Like, I got to go to her retirement ceremony, and I mean, just like person after person stood up and talked about how she touched their life and how she was such a great person to work for. And at the end of the day, like, yes, if I can impart some dental operating wisdom on somebody, great. But that's not what they're going to talk about at your retirement ceremony.
Yeah. That's impactful.
I don't know why this has been sticking out in my mind as of late, but I keep reminding myself that people very rarely are going to remember what you tell them, but they always remember how you make them feel. Totally. And I think that sounds like that was your mom. I mean, your mom clearly was very talented if she did that for 45 years, but had a great impact. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I think that sums up like what we should all look for in people we're adding to our team. Like, talented at what they do and what they deliver. She was a great nurse and knew her stuff. But when you add in the element to that of somebody who really cares and that people like and want to work for, it just completely changes the story of the type of person you are at the end of the day at your career.
That was my bad. Sorry, guys. Before we wrap up, one of the things that I think is pretty cool about your extensive history in dental, but even just like your career, is like the leap of faith, like from clinical to administrative, from administrative to software. If any of our 4.5 listeners,
Did you just count your baby as the half listener, or?
Yes. What advice would you give to somebbe who's maybe at that inflection point in their career where they have an opportunity or they're considering taking a leap into the unknown, but may be holding themselves back out of fear?
I did the Dale Carnegie course like kind of early in my career, and I'm just by nature somebody who like worries a lot. Like with my kids, with Maddie and Max, now they both drive, so I'm like constantly worried about stuff.
I can't even imagine.
And being a mom has probably made that even worse. But something that stuck out to me in that course that they taught us as a technique when you're like afraid of something was to imagine like the worst case scenario. Like imagine what is. So if you're thinking about a new thing, really just think about, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? I take this new job, I fall flat on my face, I don't know what I'm doing, I totally screw it up and I lose my job. Like maybe that's worst case scenario. Well, you can always find something else to do. So it just kind of like that tactic of like really think about what is it that is the worst thing that could happen, because then if you're okay with facing that and you know that it will be okay, that can just kind of help push you towards getting over what's holding you back.
I love that. As a fellow catastrophizer and anxious person, I say catastrophizer because
There's our new word.
I think about it. I think very similarly. I don't have the anxiety if I can prepare for all potential outcomes. So usually thinking about the worst case scenario makes me feel safer somehow.
Yeah.
But I listened to a Tim Ferriss podcast episode once about fear setting, which was very similar. Like if there's something you're scared of, what are all the potential outcomes? And then for each one, how could you avoid it? And for each one, what would you actually do if that happened?
Yeah.
And coming up, I mean, whatever it was that I practiced that on became so much less scary whenever I felt prepared to handle the worst case scenarios.
Right.
Because as Seneca the Great said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. So I think that we tend to make up more issues in our heads than actually exist.
You do. I think that's why that works, because you actually face like the reality of it. And I think catastrophizing has a lot to do with people who may also like to have a little bit of control over the outcomes.
Just a teensy. Just a little bit.
So it really helps you plan for that. Like, okay, if that happens, I'm prepared.
Absolutely.
Well, Melissa, before we wrap up, is there anything that we didn't ask or that you would like to share?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess the other like piece of advice I would give is make sure you have like a really good like posse around you of either that's like other girlfriend supporters. Like we've mentioned a few people that I met early in my career at Dental One that are just amazing support systems for myself, but also my husband and my family, and then just people at work, you know, Keith, I mentioned, and Steven, just people that have come into my life at work. Like, don't undervalue how those can really help you move into new things, and those people stay in your corner. So that's the other piece of advice I would give.
That's great advice.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks
this
for
has
having
been
me.
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
MB2 Undergrounders, we are at the end of our episode with Melissa Marquez. If you'd like to hear more about Jarvis, like Sarah mentioned, Stephen Maroulis' episode 17. But we'll see you guys next time.
Beep, boop, boop, beep.